Tucker Carlson invited Jasmine Crockett on his show expecting a headline, a viral clash he could control. But when the cameras started rolling and she didn't raise her voice, just raise the bar, it wasn't Tucker who won the moment. It was Jasmine who rewrote it. It started with a spotlight and a smirk. Tucker Carlson was back, not just streaming from a bunker with a glitchy mic and an American flag duct taped to the wall. No, this was a full return. A sleek new studio, a bigger platform, the same smug fire behind his eyes. And he wasn't easing in slow. He came out swinging, fresh off a rally in Ohio, riding the energy like a wave he thought would never break. Trump at his side, red hats in the air, chants bouncing off the arena walls like they'd never left 2016. That's when Tucker turned the crowd, just slightly, just enough. "You know who's tearing this country apart?" he asked, eyes twinkling. "Jasmine Crockett." The boos hit before the crowd even processed the name. He smiled wider, loud, angry, divisive, the poster child of everything wrong with our politics. He said her name like it was bait. He said it like he knew she'd bite. And then the promos dropped. Tucker Carlson goes head-to-head with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, live. The ad spliced rally footage with cable B-roll. Jasmine speaking with fire, pointing during hearings, labeled with words like radical, confrontational, dangerous. Dramatic music underlined it like it was a fight night. Thursday, 8 p.m. Behind the scenes, producers were already celebrating. This wasn't about news, it was spectacle. He'd corner her with clips, interrupt her mid-sentence, poke at her composure until she broke. She'd get loud. He'd stay cool. That was the formula. And nobody sold smug like Tucker. He sipped from a mug that read, "Woke Tears," in the green room and laughed with the staff. They always fold when you get them live. Always. He didn't just expect to win, he expected to watch her unravel in real time. He was already picturing the headline, "Crockett Crumbles." What he didn't know, what none of them in that studio knew, was that Jasmine wasn't coming to play defense. She wasn't coming to be provoked. She had her own plan. And Tucker? He was too busy writing her reaction in advance to realize he was the one walking into a storm with no umbrella. The invitation hit her desk like a warning wrapped in a challenge. Tucker Carlson wanted her on his new show, prime slot. No filters, no edits, just him, her, and a very sharp stage. Her chief of staff tried to talk her down. "It's a trap," he said flatly. "He's not looking for a conversation. He's looking for a clip." Jasmine didn't blink. "Then let him clip it," she said, already reaching for her notes. "I'm not going to this fight empty-handed." She didn't need the airtime. Her face was already familiar in political corners and viral videos. She wasn't chasing exposure. She was answering a moment. Because when someone calls you out in front of 20,000 screaming fans, the silence afterward says more than a press release ever could. She wasn't coming to prove herself. She was coming to remind people why she didn't need to. Her team scrambled. They pulled quotes, studied patterns, reviewed his past interviews, flagged his usual pivots. But Jasmine wasn't interested in his playbook. She already knew it. The setup was always the same. Poke, interrupt, escalate, get the reaction, sell the clip, walk away the calm one. But Jasmine had something else in mind, patience. The day of the segment, she was silent in the car. No last-minute cramming, no practicing punchlines. She sat in stillness, heels crossed, watching the city slide by. Her phone buzzed twice with warnings from allies. "Watch your tone. He'll try to make you the angry one." She smiled slightly. They always warned her about tone, never about truth. When she arrived, the studio felt colder than she expected. Tucker's staff was buzzing, not with tension, but confidence. They thought they knew how this would go. She walked through the chaos like it didn't touch her, like she had walked through hotter fires before. They mic'd her up. She straightened her blazer. She opened her notebook, not to check her notes, but to remind herself of one sentence she'd written in the margin days before. Let him talk, then tell the truth. No slogans, no volume, no theatrics, just clarity, and clarity doesn't shout. It cuts. The lights came up like they always do, too bright, too polished, too ready for a fight. Tucker sat in his usual lean, elbows on the desk, chin slightly raised, like he was already 3 moves ahead. The countdown hit 0. The intro music rolled. And just like that, they were live. "Tonight," he said, smiling wide enough to show all his teeth, "we're joined by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. You might know her from her fiery speeches, her viral committee moments, or just from being very, very loud." A soft chuckle from off-camera. Tucker didn't look over. He was locked in. "Congresswoman, thanks for joining us. Tell me, are you here to shout slogans, or do you have something real to say tonight?" Jasmine didn't blink, didn't look ruffled, didn't smile back. "I came to correct the record," she said, voice even, like she was reading from the middle of a sentence. "If you're looking for a soundbite, I suggest you rewind the rally." Tucker's grin twitched just slightly. He leaned back in his chair like her answer was proof of his point. "Fair enough," he said, lacing his fingers together. "But let's talk about your record. Your district is struggling, crime is up, homelessness is up, and yet you spend most of your time online going viral. Is that what your voters sent you to do?" Jasmine nodded once, slowly. "They sent me to speak for people who don't have your kind of stage," she replied. "And if a clip goes viral because I'm telling the truth, maybe that says more about what people are starved to hear than what you're tired of seeing." A pause. Tucker raised his eyebrows, like he hadn't expected her to flip the framing that fast. He pivoted, quick, with a new card in hand. He thought this was the warm-up. But Jasmine wasn't warming up. She was already landing punches, soft-spoken, surgical, and she wasn't done. Tucker shuffled his cards the way he always did when shifting gears. "Let's take a quick look," he said, smiling again, "at something that happened just a few days ago." The screen behind him lit up, a clip from the Ohio rally. Grainy but clear enough, Trump at the podium, Tucker beside him, and a 12-second soundbite. Tucker quoting Jasmine, misquoting her, really twisting her words into something almost cartoonish. "Apparently," Tucker said, "you think border security is a fake crisis pushed by white fear." He let the quote hang in the air like bait. Jasmine didn't take it. Instead, she looked straight at the camera. "Run that again," she said calmly. Tucker blinked. "Excuse me?" "Play the full clip, not the rally edit, the full one. I said border performances are a crisis, rallies, stunts, photo ops that solve nothing and feed division. And if you're going to misquote me, at least get the bill number right. It was House Resolution 2763. I drafted it myself. You'd know that if you'd read past the headline." Tucker sat back. His fingers tapped once on the desk. The smile faltered, not fully gone, just thinned around the edges. "Well," he said, tone shifting, "you're clearly well prepared." "No," Jasmine said. "I'm just tired of people using lies like confetti, throwing them around and hoping they stick." The studio went still for a beat. Someone in the control room whispered into a headset. Tucker adjusted his tie. Not a lot, just enough to feel the collar. This was the moment he usually took control. Shift the narrative, jump the question, add a little snark. But Jasmine didn't give him the space. She kept talking. "You framed me at that rally like I was a cartoon. You turned real policy into a punchline. That's fine. But now you're sitting across from the person you misrepresented. So let's not pretend this is a misunderstanding. You made a choice, and I'm here to make sure your viewers see that." Tucker opened his mouth, searching for the next pivot, but Jasmine had already cut the corner on the track. He'd expected a spar. What he got was a dismantling. Something shifted. Not loud, not flashy, just the kind of subtle turn you don't see until it's already happened. Tucker was leaning back now, not out of confidence, but to buy space. He reached for his next card, but Jasmine wasn't waiting anymore. She'd flipped the rhythm, took the oxygen, rewrote the tempo, and Tucker Carlson, for the first time in a long time, didn't look like he was driving. "You have a pattern," she said evenly, hands resting on the table, voice low but crisp. "You take complex issues, flatten them into talking points, then wrap them in enough sarcasm to pretend it's all just entertainment. But what you're doing isn't harmless." Tucker laughed, too sharp, too quick. "Oh, come on," he cut in. "I'm not in Congress. I don't have that kind of power." "No," Jasmine said. "You have more." He blinked. "You speak to millions. You know exactly what you're doing when you spin facts into fear. When you say my name on a stage next to Trump, you're not just disagreeing. You're making me a target. So let's not act like it's just banter." Tucker's smirk tried to hold, but his fingers gave him away, drumming against the desk, left hand twitching slightly. He tried to shift the subject. "Well, if we're talking about targets, maybe we should talk about the rhetoric from your side, about defunding the police, about—" "Your side?" she asked. "I'm not playing teams. I'm talking about responsibility, something your platform hasn't taken in years." Boom. The energy shifted again. A soundless exhale swept through the crew. One producer in the control room muttered, "We're not cutting. Keep rolling." Tucker tried to smile. It didn't land. "I'm just a guy with a show," he said, almost joking. "And I'm just a woman with a mic," Jasmine replied. "Difference is, I use mine to inform. You use yours to provoke." The desk between them suddenly looked smaller. The debate was no longer about policies or polls. It was about the mirror she was holding up. And Tucker? He wasn't ready for his own reflection. There was a pause, a real one. No interruption, no fake laugh, just air thick enough to feel. Tucker had tried another redirect, something about crime stats, something about the border. It didn't land. The words felt scattered, like they were searching for a lifeboat. And then Jasmine leaned forward, just a breath, just enough to close the space between them. "The difference between us, Tucker," she said, voice velvet and steel, "is I fight for the truth. You just flirt with fear." That was it. Nothing loud, no dramatic flourish, just a single sentence that landed like a gavel. Tucker didn't blink right away. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. A flicker of recognition passed through his eyes, like he'd been tagged with something he couldn't shake, something permanent. The studio went dead silent. No cue cards, no band, no commercial, just stillness. On social media, it hit like a detonation. People clipped it before the segment even ended. "You just flirt with fear." 4 words, 1 knockout. Hashtags lit up like fire alarms. In living rooms, people sat back in their chairs. On subways, the clip played on mute, but the expression on his face said everything. Even those who didn't usually watch political segments knew they'd just witnessed something shift. And Jasmine? She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She sat still, eyes steady. Not satisfied, just resolved. Tucker looked down at his desk like the words were still echoing off the surface. Because they were. The screen faded to black. The words, "We'll be right back," flashed across TV sets like an exhale. But inside the studio, the tension hadn't broken. It just shifted form. No music, no band, no relief. Just the low hum of studio lights and the faint click of someone unplugging a mic too quickly. Tucker leaned back in his chair, face stiff. He tapped his cards against the desk once, then muttered into the air, half to himself, half to anyone still listening, "I didn't think she'd come swinging like that." A camera tech off to the side let out a short, surprised laugh. Quick, involuntary. It wasn't cruel, just honest. Jasmine didn't respond, didn't shift. She reached for her water like she hadn't just carved through a nationally televised segment with a single sentence, took a sip, set it back down, calm, still. Like it was any Thursday. A stage manager whispered into her headset something about timing, something about staying ready. Jasmine nodded once and adjusted her blazer, not because it was out of place, but because she could. There was nothing frantic in her, no aftershock, no wobble. She wasn't coming down from anything. She was still centered. like the storm had passed through everyone else and left her untouched. Tucker sat quiet for a beat longer, his jaw tight, a slight furrow between his brows. He looked toward the control room like he was waiting for someone to tell him it hadn't gone as badly as it had. But no one did. The earpiece stayed quiet. Someone on the crew whispered, "Hot mics." But it was too late. His line, "I didn't think she'd come swinging like that," was already out there, already captured, already making its way toward the outside world. And outside, the world was waiting. It started before the segment even ended. A bootleg clip from someone in the control room uploaded raw. No edits, no cuts, just Jasmine's line and Tucker's blink. Twitter lit up first. Crockett cooked Carlson. She didn't even blink. Someone check on Tucker. Then came the TikToks, stitch edits, reaction videos, creators pointing at the screen like they'd just watched someone walk out of a fire untouched. The line looped over dramatic music, over quiet silence, over side-by-sides of Tucker's face before and after. One video just had the quote printed on screen with the caption, "This is what clarity sounds like." By midnight, YouTube was flooded with breakdowns. How Jasmine Crockett dismantled Tucker Carlson in 11 minutes. No interruptions, no shouting, just facts. Why Tucker lost control. Even conservative voices couldn't spin it clean. One radio host shrugged into the mic, "Look, I don't like her politics, but he lost that exchange. Straight up." By morning, the clip had passed 5 million views across platforms. Group chats buzzed. Reddit threads stretched a mile long. Former political staffers quietly shared the video with captions like, "This is how you handle bad faith." But the loudest part wasn't the noise, it was the shift. This wasn't just viral. It felt like a moment, a flashpoint where the usual playbook didn't work, where someone stayed still long enough to let the truth do the talking. And Jasmine? She still hadn't tweeted, still hadn't posted. She didn't need to. The internet was already saying it for her. By sunrise, the spin machine was already humming. Tucker's team clipped the segment, scrubbed it clean. They trimmed the silences, softened the line, cropped Jasmine's expression just enough to dilute the weight. In their version, it looked like a spar, contentious, sure, but mutual. A political disagreement, not a public unraveling. They posted it with a title that leaned heavy into control, "Carlson takes on fiery Democrat in explosive interview." The comments were predictably split, half cheering, half coping, but it didn't matter. Because somewhere in the sea of noise, the uncut version kept floating to the surface. Raw, wide angle, no filters. It showed the pause, the blink, the way Tucker's voice changed. It showed Jasmine not performing, not flinching, just speaking, calm, precise, devastating. Millions watched. Not just political junkies, not just the cable crowd, teachers, barbers, students on the bus, parents in kitchen chairs. People who had never tuned into a full political segment before were suddenly watching one in full. Because something about this didn't feel like just another cable clash. It felt different. It felt real. And while the pundits scrambled, while think pieces bloomed, while hashtags trended and timelines filled, Jasmine said almost nothing. She didn't do the late-night circuit. She didn't sit for panel postmortems. She posted one tweet, clarity greater than volume. No follow-up, no hashtags, no victory lap, just a 6-word thesis that landed heavier than a monologue. Because she knew the clip spoke for itself. She wasn't chasing momentum, she'd become it. This wasn't just about one moment. It wasn't about the viral line or the mic toss that never came or the blink that said more than any rebuttal could. It was about a shift, a recalibration, the quiet, certain understanding that something in the media game just cracked, and the old rules don't hold the same weight anymore. For too long, black women in politics have been cast as disruptors, sidelined as side characters, called angry when they're assertive, difficult when they're honest. But this time, the camera didn't cut. The moment wasn't spun into rage or reaction. It was clarity, live and unedited. And Jasmine Crockett didn't just destroy Tucker Carlson, she dismantled the blueprint. The one where you poke, provoke, smile, and win by default. She didn't yell, she didn't stutter, she didn't fold. And in doing so, she didn't just change the conversation, she changed who gets to lead it. Because what people saw wasn't just a congresswoman holding her ground, it was a shift in gravity. The center of the screen moved, the power dynamic tipped. And nobody, not Tucker, not his producers, not the audience, could pretend they didn't feel it. So if you watched and felt something, if you paused mid-scroll, sat forward in your seat, replayed it just to hear that sentence again, know this. That feeling, that's what change sounds like. If truth like this matters to you, don't scroll. Speak up. Share it. Because moments like this, they're not just entertainment, they're turning points.